Good morning. Happy Tuesday, February 4th, LinkedIn. Welcome to another episode of Let's Build Profoundly. We've got our next pro introducing today, Bryan Ossa. How you doing, man?
Hey there, doing fantastic, and it's a pleasure to be back. I was actually thinking this morning that it's been a while since you and I've been live on something like this.
It has been way too long, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Thank you for doing the new Let's Build series, Let's Build a Dumpster Fire with Matthew and Danielle. It's allowed me to at least keep some contact, and you guys are talking about some fun stuff over there. But yeah, man, lots going on in the past, week and a half. Got a ton of good feedback related to Profoundly and what we're trying to accomplish, even some direct feedback on these shows. And it's your turn, man.
I know, yeah, yeah. Very excited to be here, and yeah, I've been keeping tabs on the shows themselves, and you know, it's been really cool just to see everyone who like the two of us are used to working with all the time, but just being able to share that out with everyone else who's potentially going to be interfacing with this tool, with the platform, with this growing community, and it's just been a really cool and exciting time to show everything that's behind the curtain.
Yeah, this is we get to be our best use case if we want to be, and it's proven out so far. Not one promotional cold outreach yet via email, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Nice.
But that could be a whole nother conversation.
We can
We're
talk
here to.
about that on tomorrow's dumpster fire if you want.
There you go. Oh, I've got some stuff. Uh, anyways, Bryan Ossa, HubSpot expert. What is your HubSpot expertise and where does it come from?
Fair enough. Yeah, that's generally a hard question to answer. If I had to say drill it down to one specific thing, not just the whole platform, I would have to say the organization infrastructure. And what I mean by that is pretty much how you articulate objects, events, and properties. So building that data structure in a way that allows not only you to use the system most effectively, which is hugely important, but while you're doing that, you're simultaneously keeping everything that's behind the scenes intact so that you can do things like reporting or setting up a new sales pipeline with ease or setting up an automation that actually makes sense. Things like that. But there's so much to it, but that's the one I like highlighting because ultimately it's about making things as simple as possible and as scalable while keeping it simple.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So, how did you get that? How did you come to that point in wanting to help people with HubSpot in that way?
It's been a long story. For those of you who don't know, I've actually been one of the earlier adopters of HubSpot. So I've been on the platform for over a decade. I think I first experienced it and saw it probably 2009, actually way back in the day, but I barely touched it
Yeah,
at that point.
before CRM.
Exactly. Started using it myself somewhere like in small quantities around like 2011, 2012, started using it hands on somewhat regularly in 2013, and have been very much in the ecosystem and watching it develop quite consistently since 2013. Watching the whole thing transform to pre CRM and pre and like when it was still Jarmesh Bryan trying to figure out what this is, all the way to what it is today. I can tell you it's very it's like you can't even compare like night and day. It's comparing like the sense of smell to this visual to being able to see something. Like they're totally different.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize you've been in the game that long. And so it's interesting to hear where you're at expertise wise, helping people with data models and structure, because I know a lot of people who have also been in it a long time and they've kind of honed uh, their marketing expertise. They don't necessarily venture outside of Marketing Hub and what the things that a lot of people know HubSpot for. What kind of took you down, this path? Because back then there was no real data model
No.
to like even talk about.
Yeah, and it can be answered simply with just the concept of me liking to dabble and play. And so I would equate my experience and expertise with HubSpot to be kind of parallel with how it's gone throughout my career in general. And that's largely been leaning into experimentation of trying something new, getting as comfortable as I wanted to with it, and then pulling in something else to the mix. And so that started off with doing a lot of website design and development. I started doing that with paid clients back in high school, but over time realizing it's like, okay, well, websites really just, it's a content piece of marketing. And then, okay, what is all of marketing? Which started bleeding into, okay, well, marketing's important, but now it influences with this thing called sales, and how are they different? And then learning about what that looks like, which leans into customer retention and customer success. And then as you start going down into the different parallels of enterprise versus like small business to very small business, you start seeing everything else that actually drives these factors. So it's not just the guise of marketing and sales. Like there's project management happening behind the scenes. The people need to get paid somehow. So what does that HR and accounting software look like? How to use all of these things? You need to actually have defined processes and SOP, like standard operating processes, that basically tell you how to do that, which is separate from project management, which is the actual definition of like doing these things. And so, as my perspective broadened across all these different ventures, it just got more and more interesting about trying to fit the pieces of the puzzle together. And the one thing that I did notice consistently, no matter what company I was working with or for, was just this a pain. We'll call it a pain point. And that pain point is just, it's the thing that you kind of experience in your company where you're just like, man, it could be running better. And I don't know why, but you kind of go on, event to your work best friend about, okay, how can we make this thing better? And it could be this, it could be that, it could be the other thing. And from my perspective, it boiled down to really two things that drive one. And it's what I champion. And if you've heard me speak before, I sound like a broken record. It's the concept of merging your operations with your technology to enable your strategy. One of those three things pretty much breaks, like if you feel disjunction in your organization, I promise you it's one of those three things. And so that's just kind of what led to the overall philanthropy of like wanting to help fix that problem, because I got sick of experiencing it myself. And so how do you fix that? You just do it. And that leads to being, you try and be a champion of change, and when that inevitably fails, you're like, okay, great, well, I'm going to try this a different way with different people and see what happens.
Yeah. No, we are a lot alike in that way. You can only run into this, I'd say, any challenge so many times before you're like, all right, time to try and solve it like in earnest. And, I'd love the show that we did, building HubSpot map. As you've kind of made this journey, like how are we in a place where most businesses just do not have maps documented of any kind? Like almost every, especially when there's a HubSpot admin, it's always on the list,
Mm-hmm.
something they want to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's never done.
Yeah. And I'm coming at this from the lens of having experiences both in an enterprise setting, like working for large real estate firms, working for HubSpot itself, but also being involved with doing like creating these kinds of things at all kinds of different startups, both product facing and service facing. And so what I've experienced through that is that at the enterprise side of things, the map does exist, but the problem is that it's outdated, because like if you to get anything formally changed on whatever internal service is just so much work that by the time you change, like you may go through all the process of changing it and it's updated on this one page. The problem is there's 20 other pages that all basically say the same thing that you don't know about. And so everyone's referencing a different version of that information. And so that causes discontinuity. On the startup side of things, you're so focused on just creating and just executing, like creating and executing and just putting out something, that you're not really worried about the how to. And so the how to is happening, but like keeping up the documentation for that is secondary. And you're only doing that when it helps you get to the means to your end. Otherwise, you're just kind of like, okay, you know what? It's fine. I'll come back to this. I'll write it down later. And then you forget to, because we're all human. We're going to forget. That's totally natural. And that combination, and there's the other facet for the startup where you do a great job of this, but you're changing so quickly that in 3 months it's irrelevant anyway. And so that crux between the two is that you're always finding yourselves with a map or not, but either way, it's really not one that's cohesive and flowing to your business. You kind of disregard it, and then everything just focuses on being tribal knowledge, as it were, which is fine until the person who is your tribal knowledge guru leaves the company, and then everyone else is left panicking.
Yeah, to say the least. So what's your go-to? Like, what's one thing like you usually see happen to get people to just take a step back and admit and like, okay, let's get our processes mapped. Let's try to get all of our ducks in a row, for lack of a better phrase, so that they can actually, build that foundation.
Mm-hmm. From my perspective, it boils down to just this old joking of concept of the definition of insanity. And if you're not familiar with this silly terminology, it's basically the concept of doing the same thing multiple times and expecting different outcomes. But in a business case, that is very literally what is happening. Like, you are actually experiencing the definition of insanity, where you're doing the same thing, but and you are receiving different outcomes. So whether or not that's like a sales process where you have one sales team member who's doing the same thing that they've been doing for the last, 2 years, but it used to basically close a deal in 3 calls, and now it can be 1 call or 12 calls, and you don't really know why. Or something you used to run with ease via an automation to just kind of populate a property, now sometimes populates that property, sometimes populate 3 properties, and sometimes doesn't populate a property at all. And the input is all the same with these things, but the output differs. And so that's when you're like, okay, we have a problem, and this problem is being felt by people in the organization. And all right, let's back up and figure out what's going wrong here. And that's kind of what leads to the genesis of this from the technical side of things. There's a personal side of things too, where maybe you have processes flowing well, your team works well, but you maybe have a bad hire or someone who indicates that they know, like, can fill the gap that you're looking for, but maybe is a little disjointed. And that may result in a similar experience. Or you change a process, and changing the process by which you manage your project management. Let's say in an agency, you go from pricing everything out in dollar amounts to doing a points-based pricing model. Something is going to break, and you're like, okay, hold up. We need to pause, and we need to remap where things are so that we can fix this.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Yeah, generally it's that new thing that causes much more pain than anticipated, especially when it comes to bringing in new people, because you've got literally that initial tribe that has the tribal knowledge. You're like, all right, let's go get a rock star and just bring them in. And then, yeah, really hard to be a rock star when you don't have all your stuff documented. But outside of HubSpot, outside of mapping business, tell us a little bit about who Bryan Ossa is.
Bryan Ossa is. Oh man, honestly, you kind of joke when we were just joking about the definition of insanity. I think if you ask a bunch of different people, we'll probably all give you similar but completely different results of who I am. Honestly, outside of that, like, you see around me, like, I build Legos, and it's kind of a manifestation. That's a big part of who I am, just like in general. And it's just kind of this combination of two things. One, I like tinkering, so it doesn't matter what it is. I like building it, whether it's little plastic blocks or rebuilding a car engine. Even though I don't know how to do a car engine, I'm very comfortable with vehicle electronics, though, or tinkering the garage. But it's also a metaphor of just, well, being youthful at heart. My wife has this joking expression for me that we spiritingly call, like, say to friends and family, of me being her hodler, of basically being, the husband toddler, which is completely warranted. and it, it's just this ongoing, like, childlike but not childish, just passion for just kind of trying to experience life. So
Yeah.
it's playing with these. It's going outside on runs, bike rides, playing hockey, whatever. It's or just staying inside playing a board game or video games. Honestly,
Okay. What
comic
kind of board
comical
games?
amount of diversity to it in every direction.
What kind of board games are we playing?
Oh gosh, lots of them. Lots of them. Actually, we got two new ones in the mail over the weekend, which I'm very excited for. So, wow, we have a trip being planned over to Japan here in a couple months, and we got Jamie Stegmeyer recommended a game called Let's Go to Japan, which is basically a trip building game, which I haven't played. I hadn't heard of it, but my wife found it. Was just like, yeah, let's do this. So she got that, and then Jamie let me know about the new version, the new Wingspan edition that they dropped out called Finspan, focused around fish, which I have. I love fish. I don't like. It's very entertaining, but it's basically it's the concept of Wingspan, which is an engine building game, but focused around a biological ecology. So very fun, and yeah, lots of different board games. I mostly tend to lean into the longer engine builders that
Yeah.
people like. If you want to spend like 20 minutes or half an hour playing a game, I'm probably like, I'll play with you, but I'm more the person who's like, all right, let's sit down for 90 minutes to 3 hours and get really deep with something, like get really deep in it. So for those
Yeah. Let's get
older
some.
board games, I'm the risk player of the group.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get some skill based games in there for sure. That's awesome. I love me
Mm,
a good board game every now and then.
mm-hmm.
But we got a big event coming up
Yeah.
next month, March 6th. And you've been awesome as the event lead, putting everything together. I'll say we're learning a lot. Big part of the strategy here is kind of taking, supporting a bunch of individuals who have all kind of existed in the ecosystem in one way or another. Knew things could be better, but really haven't had a place, to really collect and do so consistently and add value. So a lot of the event is trying to wrangle those people. We've got a great slate for March 6th. But I'd be curious, like, if you could just share a little bit about, you know, what you've been seeing as the event comes together and kind of your well, maybe behind the scenes action.
Yeah. And with this one, I have to say it's definitely a different experience because traditionally, when you're spearheading an event and setting everything up, whether that's the project management side of things, actually coordinating on site logistics, working on the technology, whatever, you're usually doing that with a primary organization, and most of the people are completely involved in the primary organization. Here, it's very different in that, you know, most of the people actually aren't. So it's kind of you're corralling. Well, corralling maybe not be the right word for it, but you're orchestrating and organizing a whole myriad of different perspectives, different ways of doing things, and different ways of writing and documenting. And there is no one consistent way. And we're not going to define a consistent way because that defeats the purpose. But that is something that is very much common in most other scenarios. So building a whole framework around that from, even just from a project management standpoint, makes it a little bit more difficult because where I would normally just, hey, I'll just pull out a traditional waterfall project management template and this thing leads to this thing, etc. You're having to be a lot more nimble with everything because each different person operates differently and there's subcategories within each one of the tracks. There's also everything that's involved with the event itself, and there's everything that's involved with what we're doing from the Marcom side of things. And so all of those are different, like completely different ways of thinking and processes that you need to run. And so there's a degree of structure, but where I would traditionally say that you can run this by like 80% structure, 20% winging it, I would say it's a little bit more in the inverse, where it's like, there's probably 30 to 40% structure, but the majority is quite a bit more winging it, just the nature of it, which I'm
Yeah.
good with because
Well, I
it's,
think that was a big part of what we learned last year, right? Like, in order to kind of support knowledge sharing in this way, like you've got to create some dynamism, some space to do what you need to do. People are busy, they got different priorities all over the place. Um, but when you get experts, like when there's true expertise, that's when people can just like, I mean, watching George just show up as much as he likes to plan. I've a lot of our shows, I kind of forced him not to plan. And it turned into some really damn good, content. And while we're taking a much more structured approach compared to, Let's Build series, it's still like working with what you got in terms of even inside of an organization. Like people are out sick and like missing deadlines, and like I love how we're at this point, at least we've got a month to go. Pretty pretty confident we'll get there, and I know we're gonna have an awesome event. But just creating the space to flex around like everyday life, because as everybody's an individual, like there's literally like 25 different everyday lives to kind of work around. So creating the space to say, hey, show up, when you can, but if you can't, we've got alternative, modes of participation. And so it's been fun for sure to see it happen. Any favorites on the agenda that you're looking forward to?
Honestly, the bit that I'm really looking forward to is how we're orchestrating the breakout sessions. And that's because it's going to be very non-traditional. And when I say that, I'm more leading to the fact that, you know, it's a collective of individuals. It isn't a structured approach. And so as a result of that, we're all just bouncing ideas off each other, and some of those ideas stick and manifest and turn into something, and others don't. And the only thing they have overall related is the general subject matter category that they're in. But outside of that, they may be completely different topics. So I think that's going to be really cool to see come to life, especially as we start seeing what those shape up to be. And we have our first content review of all the different tracks sessions today, actually. So when we getting everyone who's working on this project, we're all going to be getting in a room, kind of giving a hey, here's where we are, here's where we got to go, and here's what we need. We're going to get that squared away and just continue getting all of those items cleaned up and dotted out so that we can make this event fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun and valuable. We've got 8 tracks that Brian alluded to. Let me see if I can spout these off. HubSpot admin,
Yep.
web developer,
Yep.
creation developer,
Mm-hmm.
RevOps, AI/Breeze, uh, led by Nico Lafakis, by the way, marketer,
Mm-hmm.
founder, and solopreneur.
Yep. Yep.
So,
You hit a ball on the nail on the head, and so yeah, it should be fun. And for those you listed, the AI one, it is specifically focused on generative AI. If there's any, we're not getting into any of the other microcosms of that universe because there's a lot to add.
yes, no, that's a good point. And we'll be sharing, like Brian said, as we like confirm like titles and things like that. We're in the process of doing that. We'll be sharing all those session titles soon. If you want to check it out, follow along with any of us, but also the Profoundly page. Go ahead and follow that, uh, and come over to profound.ly to register for the event. Or if you want to become a Profoundly pro like Brian here, we'd love to have you. So you can go there and click on the Give HubSpot Help button, and there's a simple form to get you started, and we'll get you into the Slack community. So already over 100 people in there. So it's been fun to watch transpire, and I appreciate all your support and participation along the way, man. I wasn't always called Profoundly when we started talking about this stuff last year, but
No,
it's cool to see it come together.
Yeah, and you're entirely right. So yeah, come join us. We are Legion. It's amazing, and honestly, I love seeing that group take up. So going from what we've had this Slack group maybe 2 months, and 2 months ago there are six of us in it. 2 months ago there were six of us in it. 1 month ago there were maybe a dozen and a half. We're over 100 now, and that's just unbelievable growth over a couple months.
Yeah, yeah. So come join us, like Brian
Mhm.
says. And until our next session tomorrow, we will see you next time. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you having me. Take care, everyone, and we'll catch you soon.